Hi, this is Catherine, and welcome back to Taking Tea with Catherine. It is a beautiful day out, and I'm indoors drinking detox tea like I've been drinking all night or something. But actually, I have one of those migraine, dizzy things that I complain about quite often. I'm at a point at this time of day where it's not too bad, but I'm still not reading very heavily because it's hard to when you're dealing with this. But detox tea has all the ingredients I need to treat it. It tastes a little medicinal, but still kind of good. Uh, yeah, I got to read yesterday outdoors and walk around, and I'm not complaining. Let's face it, we have our good days and our bad days. One of the good things that I got to do, though, was catch up on some of my booktube videos when I haven't been too blah to watch videos. And I was watching some more classics TBRs, and I really thought that I did my classics TBR for this year, and apparently I haven't. So I said, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's get into it. And I didn't even count how many of these are. They're less than 20, but more than a dozen, I think. I don't feel like counting. So you can count with me as we go along. What constitutes a classic in my books? I don't know. I become furious sometimes when I rarely listen to radio nowadays, and I find that the classic rock radio has stuff on it that came out when I was a teenager. Nirvana is not classic rock. But anyway, but that's, I know, rock and roll came out a little later than these books, so what is considered a classic is different books. Most of these books are at least 100 years old anyway, and most of these, if not all of them, were written before 1950, so it's easy enough for me to say before 1950. But if any of these had been written in the 50s, I would not have hesitated to include anything before 1960, and possibly something from the 60s if I had been so inclined. But since they're not, I could just say 1950 and, get on with it. I've tried to keep a little bit of variety, not as much as some would, but it's not all English, not all British classics. Though there are some in here, obviously. I have some from other parts of Europe, so that's good. Almost all of these are fiction classics. I do read a lot of nonfiction. I don't find myself reading a lot of nonfiction classics, but I have one exception, and I'm going to start off with that. It's not only the exception in that it's a nonfiction, but it's, well, and it's not just a classic, it's an antiquity. But I started it. So I wanted to show only things, not the ones that I already read, that I already showed you guys in my TBR for this year. For this month, I should say. So yes, I did do a classics TBR, but it was for January. So those are not even on this list because I'm already in them. But this is an exception because I did read book 1 of this book, but it's been almost a decade, and I think it's pretty much like starting over because book 2 I didn't get very far in. Looks like. So, which book is this? The Histories by Herodotus. And I love history. Book 1 was a lot of Persia and Babylon and that sort of thing. Kind of hilarious sometimes. I was surprised at his conversant way of speaking about history. I don't know. You always think that things are going to be so, with such gravitas and dun dun dun, But I read the Bible and it's not all like that either. So I don't know what I'm thinking. It's not like people walked around those days like, oh. So I don't know. I overcame my prejudices by starting it over a decade ago, and I mentioned it to my, at the time, roommate, who decided to tell an older friend of ours about how her roommate is so smart that she reads this sort of thing for pleasure, and said friend gave me a bunch of her old books, which was a benefit. So if you want to brag about my reading habits, brag away. So I hope to get back into this. It's been staring at me for, like I said, a decade, saying, why are you not reading me? I'm good. You know I'm good. Why are you not reading me? So, there it is. Here's another one that I actually, so I'm a hypocrite. I said I wasn't going to show any ones that I started, but anything else that I started, when I say I started it, these other ones, I would say just reading maybe a chapter or two, and I don't count that as really getting into a book. It's almost like having a preview. So, and I've mentioned this recently, This book is heavy. I know I have a lighter copy somewhere of just the first book. Swann's Way by Proust. His remembrance of things past, in search of lost time, whatever you want to call it. I'm not going to say it in French because you guys have ears and I don't want them to hurt. But I know I liked it from the beginning and I don't know why I left off, so it would be nice to get into it again. Now, here's a bit of either or. I like Dickens. I don't say I like him better than any writer ever, but I do quite like him, and I'm already reading Dombey and Son, so I've pretty much hit my quota for the year. But if I were to read another Dickens this year, I have two that I would like to read very much so, and that's either Tale of Two Cities, which I started like a chapter or two last autumn, and I liked it so far. It's historical-ish, so I like history. You know, I know it's a little bit sad, but what isn't nowadays? Or Barnaby Rudge, which is a strange choice compared to A Tale of Two Cities, which is highly popular, and if you go into a bookshop and say, I need to find Dickens, you're going to see either A Tale of Two Cities, A Christmas Carol, or Great Expectations, or Oliver Twist. Right off the bat. One of those are going to be there. I guarantee it. Unless they just really don't carry Dickens, you're going to find at least one of them. Barnaby Rudge, you may not find. You probably won't, but you might. So if I want to get all hipstery and say you probably haven't read this one, then I should read this one, right? But that's not why I read things. I don't like to be that kind of person. I think this is the book that was mentioned recently that I read in Raven Master. Like there's a character that has a raven here. So that could be interesting, and that's one of the reasons why I chose it. I think I'm right about this. Yeah, the name, Barnaby Rudge, just sounds so dull. But it's also kind of totable book, and sometimes it's hard for me to find. And look at this book. I mean, this is an old volume that I have, that I bought for like $2 in an old library sale, I think. But look how beautiful this is. So, it might be the one. So, I'm vacillating here. I'm not going on theme at all here. This is one of the most recent classics. I'm trying to see when this was written. Had to have been, well, he died in 1950, so it is pre-1950. Trying to find when it was written. It looks like it says here 1949? Huh. So maybe it's one of his, alright. 1984 by George Orwell. You guys have possibly heard me mention, where is he? He's back here somewhere. Yeah, I'm turning my back on you guys, you know, I'm so mean. I didn't like Animal Farm, but of course I read it in school, so, you know, that puts me in a prejudicial mode. But I liked his essays, and 1984 is such a classic, and it's a little beat up because it's used, and so it might be a good one that I carry around. My only issue, and there's two books that have prominent eyes on them. I never liked floating eyes. Eyes, as in ocular. I'm weird that way, but we all have our weirdnesses. I don't know what it is. I've always hated just seeing eyes floating around. It's a little weird, right? So I don't really love the cover, but I think I could deal with it. If it's a really good book, then I really can deal with it. Alright, so here's a book that I bought. Actually, I bought this after the other book that comes after. You know when you buy a book and you realize that it's not the first one? That there's like a prequel or sequel? I don't know. And you think maybe I should start with this first. So I went to Book Culture last year. One of the ones, there's two near Columbia University. There's one in Queens, and then there's one not far from the Museum of Natural History in the Upper West Side of Manhattan that recently was closed because of some payment issue, rent or something, which is one of my favorite ones, so that makes it a shame. But I don't know. Guys, support your local bookshop if you can. But anyway, so I bought Love in a Cold Climate there, and then I realized that The Pursuit of Love by Nancy Mitford comes before it, so I thought I should really start this. Now let's see when this was written. Let's see, she died in 1973. But, okay. It was written in 1945, so one of my more recent classics. You know, when you know someone who was born before a book, you know, then it doesn't feel... And again, my grandfather was born in 1894. But I didn't really know him, so... Anyway, that's TMI. Is it TMI? Just a little too much information. So I don't know much about this book, but I just think it's time for me to start the Mitfords a little bit. So let's hope for the best. Where are we? A little more variety. I know I'm still working on War and Peace, goodness sakes. But I also would like to read a Dostoevsky, and this one just, I like the way it sounds because it sounds like a combination of Law and Order and Sense and Sensibility, or Pride and Prejudice, because I'm, anything that says this and this, except Romeo and Juliet. No, not really. But anyway, Crime and Punishment. I don't know if I'll love it. I think this is the one that my father read and liked. I don't know if that's an indication of whether I'll like it or not, but it's almost totable. Totable, when I say totable, I don't know when it has the gilded edges, but I've had this for many years now. These books I was buying over a decade ago. I didn't realize I had it that long, but they don't sell these in Barnes & Noble anymore, and it still has the bookmark in the same place that it was placed, all folded up. So I think it's time. It's time. I know nothing about this. Sometimes I like that, though, because I've been spoiled on so many classics. Now, this is a part of a book club pick, but it's the 20s, so it's kind of nice to do that. And it's got something on it that I keep picking off. That's kind of fun. Is that weird? But you know what? It's better than picking your nose. This is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. It's not a long book, so it's not a great commitment to me. And it takes place mainly in New York. I think Long Island. There's a bit in my neighborhood, I think. So that's kind of interesting. Yes, I see eyes floating, but it's part of a face, so I can deal with it. Yes. Tune in. More of Catherine's neuroses. Taking neuroses with Catherine. It's a classic. I know what happens in it, but I could do it. And it's probably going to be shown in my TBR for next month, because that's when the book club's supposed to be. Now, I've been trying to read more children's classics. And my reread of Anne of Green Gables was a massive success to me, because I loved it so much. So much. I still love it. But I'm glad about that. Little Women was a bit of a fail for me, I'm sorry to say. So let's see if we can break even with The Secret Garden. I bought this late last year in my effort to at least read some of the children's classics that I never got to. I know I saw a film version of this, but I still don't remember a lot of it, so I won't be completely spoiled. This is a gorgeous book. Another one that I don't have. I don't have a proper book sleeve. I have an old tiny laptop sleeve that might do, but it's really hard for me to put these kind of books in a bag by itself because they get beat up no matter what you do. And when they're gilded and just so pretty like this, it makes me nervous. So I might have this as one of my stay-at-home books, which is fine because I'm home a lot. And The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. This would be a really nice spring read, I think, because it's such a beautiful springy color. And The Secret Garden bloomed and bloomed, and every morning revealed new miracles. I could use that kind of cheerfulness. I'm sure it's going to be a little depressing anyway, but I like cheerful and depressing as a combination. It kind of encompasses my personality. Now here's a book that I didn't expect to pick. So I may not read this one, but I may also. I'm not even sure. I think Jules Verne is French, so this might be translated. I don't see the name of the translator in here. This I found in Book Off for $5, and since it has 2 classics in one, I think that's wonderful. But I'm only going to read part 1 if I read it at all, which is Round the World in 80 Days. Jules Verne, and I've meant to read it for a while. Not that I'm as big a follower of anything that David Tennant is in nowadays as I used to be, because he's in a lot of stuff lately that's just been kind of, I don't know, playing murderers and stuff. I'm not big into that. But if I can follow certain things that he's in, I like it. He's so rarely in anything that's like a classic. I'm not talking about modern written things that will be classics, but I mean like classics. So besides Shakespeare, he was right by Anthony Trollope, I think, but it's a rare exception. So he's supposed to be in Around the World in 80 Days in a new production of it. I think the BBC picked it up, so I don't know when it's coming to the United States, but I thought it would be nice maybe to read it beforehand. Maybe. This cover, it's like kind of plush. I can't explain. And yes, it has gilded edges, so I probably won't carry it with me. Or maybe I will. Who knows? Now here's one that I mentioned that I want to read. This is my deal. I mentioned this before and I'll mention it again. I don't like books that have writing in it unless I decide to write in them. And when I write in them, I write in pencil so that I can erase it if I want to. And even then, it's pretty rare. And if you're going to write in a book, like, do it neatly. But anyway, someone underlined the heck out of this and wrote all kinds of notes. And I think I want to get rid of it. So my plan is, I want to read more Shantae. Yeah, I want to read some more Charlotte Bronte and Anne Bronte, as you guys know. Shirley seems like a good next choice for me. I have another volume of Shirley, so I don't mind losing this one. And I plan to bring this one as my one and only book that I'm carrying with me to London. And because I'm going to buy other books when I'm in London. If I don't, it would be crazy because I am going to hit lots of bookshops in London. You guys, if you want to comment down below bookshops that I must visit, I probably have been to some of them already because I am that person. But I don't care. You guys want to talk about bookshops in London, I want to talk about it too. So I will hit bookshops, and so I will buy more books. So if I will not run out of books to read on my way back, like in 2000 when I talk about that time that I went crazy. So I could start this one on my way over and during my trip, and I could leave it behind somewhere in London for someone to pick up and say, "Ooh, look, a classic," and then open it up and go, "Oh no!" So I will at least have made some headway in here. So that's my weird kind of Bronte goal right now. Speaking of Bronte, I don't know. I already mentioned I kind of want to read the Life of Charlotte Bronte by Elizabeth Gaskell. So I didn't put that in here, but it's just kind of a thing that I might want to read as a companion to these books. But I definitely want to read another Elizabeth Gaskell, and I haven't read North and South yet. It seems time for me to read North and South. Because how have I not gotten to this? Everybody, I would say 8 out of 10 booktubers that have read this tend to like it, and if they haven't, that's okay. I still want to give it a try. I did like the story when I saw the movie version of it. So, movie version? Is it just adaptation? I don't know. Richard Armitage and whatever her name is, I'm sorry, who plays Margaret Hale. I was kind of interrupted. There was a time period where I guess I was getting a lot of, well, you live in New York, you're going to get big bugs in your apartment. I don't know if they're water bugs or roaches. I don't want to talk about it. But in the middle of it, watching it, one of those bugs made an appearance. Therefore, I was very distracted, and I still don't know what happened to that bug. So I know what happens in the story, but I really want to read it fresh and not think about what's bugging me. Alright, so now, I mentioned I'm going to read more Trollope this year, and I already have Barchester stuff going on. But this one, well, I think this is the one that Steve Donahue mentioned, I think. And if not, I'm still sure it's a good book, because people that I know have read it said it's good. And I found this in Westsider Books, which I actually visited yesterday when I was feeling a little better. I didn't buy anything yesterday, but I got to visit the cat, so win-win. Orley Farm. It's a standalone, I'm pretty sure, and it's a bit chunky, but we like chunky over here. So I hope to read this, and I hope to have a really good report for you guys. I like the name, Orley Farm. It just sounds kind of, I don't know. Now this one I had hoped to have read in Victober last year, because it's not only a Victorian book, but it's a mystery, and I thought, what a great combination. I read A Woman in White, so I know that I could like this writer's further works, but I did not get to The Moonstone. And whether I wait till Victober to read it, or I read it sooner, we shall see. But I've heard mostly good things about Moonstone, and I like detective novels, and I know it's an early detective novel, and I like Wilkie Collins so far. So I have high hopes. Now, speaking of bandwagon people talking about something all over BookTube, I have seen this so much. I have seen people going on and on about Edith Wharton and how, oh my goodness, I am blown away by Edith Wharton, I love her, etc. And I'm the kind of person who likes Edith Wharton. I read Ethan Frome in school, therefore I didn't like it that much. Freddie. I read The Age of Innocence, and I really did like it. I remember it's been a number of years since I've read it though, but I remember specifically feeling like, gosh, this is good, you know? So I recently bought this 3 Novels of New York, chonky, and I think it's time for me to read The House of Mirth. That's the first one in here, and I hear it's really good, possibly a little frustrating and a little sad at times. Jonathan Franzen wrote an introduction to this. I've never read anything by Jonathan Franzen, so there you go. I don't know what that means. But I probably won't read the introduction because sometimes spoilers. Anyway, I want to read The House of Mirth. It sounds good. I hope I like it. And that's all I can say about it. And again, another New York book, because I'm really trying to work on having more books about New York that I could talk about here as a compilation. So we'll see. Anyway, these are my goals. These are my TBRs. If I read 5 of them, I'm happy. Because I don't want to be crazy. But if I read all of them, I will be amazed. And this has been Catherine from Taking Tea with Catherine. Not as migrainey as this morning, thankfully. If you like reading these kind of books, if you like talking about these kind of books, please subscribe, comment down below, all the things. Have a lovely day. Have a healthy day.